Hey everybody, Ryan Ferris here, and it's been a little bit since my last video. I've been practicing a lot of riftbound, traveling a lot to riftbound events, and content creation has kind of gone by the wayside, but I want to change that. And I thought, what better time to start making a video than right now, because I just got back from the regional qualifiers in Las Vegas and I got 12th place. And I'm very happy because my goal was to top 64, because top 64 or better gets a qualifier for the first regional at the end of the year. And well, I did better than top 64. I top 16 with 12th place. So today I kind of want to talk about the tournament, the deck that I chose to play, and maybe what changes I might make going forward. So let's jump right into it. This was a pretty large event. There was 1,670 players. That's quite a lot. Not the biggest tournament I've ever been to, but definitely not the smallest. That is a pretty healthy amount of players. And it was 8 rounds day 1, and then you had to go 6-2 or better to day 2, and day 2 was 5 rounds, then cut to top 8. Day 1 went pretty good for me, not fantastic, because I did end up 6-2. So, the worst quote unquote record to make day 2. But hey, I was happy because making day 2 always feels nice. Then day 2 was fantastic. I did not lose a single match. And so I ended up 11-2. Day 2 was awesome. 11-2, there were actually 1, 2, 3 players 11-2 that did day 2. However, their tiebreakers were better than mine. So my opponent match win percentage was then lower than people that had their losses later. So, feels a little bit bad that I missed out on top 8 because of tiebreakers, but I kind of already suspected that because my tiebreakers would not have been the best. But as you can see here, 12th place, Ryan Ferris, 33 points, 11-2. So I was smack dab in the middle, more or less, of the 11-2s, which kind of makes sense with where I thought I would be. I'm super, super relieved and very happy to qualify for the first regional, because that was my goal. I really want to qualify for the first regional. Now that I have that, I'm still going to go to all the regional qualifiers that I can, but I may or may not medal hunt. And that's kind of a conversation for a different day, because my first priority was we are getting that qualification for regionals. I want to put up a good result. And now that I have, I still want to put up really good results and, try a top 8 and all that. But maybe the EV is higher now that I'm qualified to do some medal hunting. But we could talk more about that later on this video, or maybe in a different video. But let's talk about the deck that I did in fact play. The deck that I played was Miracle Draven. I think that this deck is so good. Obviously, that's no secret. A lot of people think this deck is so good. A lot of people did very well with this deck. And I really, really like this deck. It fits my play style. I love Izzet decks in Magic. And this kind of feels like this with all that card draw and just card manipulation. And I find it a blast to play. Let's talk about my list, because most lists are, the core package is the same, but there are usually a couple cards different. And this is a list that I really like. There will probably be some changes that I make going forward, because my next big tournament is the CCS in Houston, not this upcoming weekend, but the weekend after. And I do plan on playing this. However, the next really big event is I will be going to the regional qualifier in France and Atlanta. I might be playing Miracle Draven, or I might be metal card hunting. So first off, obviously I am doing Draven. We all know him. We all love him. Well, maybe some people do, some people don't. And then, Draven Vanquisher as the chosen champion. That is very normal. My rune split is a 7-5 rune split. Now, some people are doing an 8-4 with red. However, I do kind of like the 7-5 just because you always will have a red rune up to proc the Draven Vanquisher, as well as I am playing 1 Piercing Light in the main and then 1 in the board, as well as Nocturne and Spinning Axe. You can play either Chaos or Fury runes to play them. So that then just gives more manipulation and more use to your fairy runes. Now let's talk about the battlefields. My game 1 battlefield, so you don't know if you're going first or second, is always on Warrens because it is just the most neutral, good battlefield because we love to discard cards because we have Scrap Heap in our deck, as well as then we can just filter away, if we draw a Nocturne, we can throw them away. And we also are playing Traveling Merchant, so then that just gives us the more bang for our buck with our discards, and so we could try to be the most explosive we possibly can be in game 1. Then in game 2, if I am going first, it is Candlelit Sanctum. That is my going first battlefield because this is one that you want to conquer, so then you can look at the top 2 cards and do that more than your opponent. I am choosing Candlelit Sanctum here because I am playing the full playset of Nocturne. Nocturne and Candlelit Sanctum is a match made in heaven because then hopefully you can just, peel him off the top, reveal him, play him, and then do whatever you want with the second card. However, even if you're not hitting a Nocturne, it is still good just to do more card manipulation. It is never a bad thing to do. By going second battlefield, so if I won the first game, I'm going second, or whatever game that I am going to second, I do Obelisk of Power, because that means on turn 1, you have 4 runes, which then gives you the chance just to play Draven Vanquisher on turn 1. To be fair, you do not always play him on turn 1. You might have a better turn 1 play. However, the heuristic and what you should always be thinking about is playing Draven the best right now on turn 1. The answer is more times than not, yes, it is. Now let's talk about the units. First up, we have a full playset of Traveling Merchants. This little guy is great. You can, move him, you discard your Scrap Heap, you draw 2, or like I said, kind of was on Warrens, you can discard your Nocturne or whatever you don't want to hopefully filter out and just get to more powerful units. I will say this is a card that I will side out a little bit, especially on Obelisk games, because on turn 1, you are more likely than not playing Draven, and you really want to be playing Merchant on turn 1. So when you're like, well, I'm probably going to be playing Draven on turn 1, you can side out a couple Merchants because you have a better turn 1 play. Ezreal, obviously, he is one of the core aspects of a Miracle deck. So of course, we're playing 3 copies. This card is so good and really what makes the deck tick. Nocturne, I know not everyone is playing Nocturne, and if they are, they don't do 3. In my mind, Nocturne is a 3 or a 0 of. Yes, some people are playing 1 and 2, but I really like the 0 or 3. Obviously, I like the 3 more because I am playing 3. And why I want to just max out is because then you are just putting up higher percentages of you to hit Nocturne off of your Call Shocks, Stack Deck, and Candlelit Sanctums. And at the end of the day, well, we could just loot him away. I am actually playing a 3 of Noxus Hopeful, and I really like this unit because before I wasn't playing Noxus Hopeful, and then I started to play 1, and then I just kept going up and up because I like this because this can almost be a more aggressive Miracle deck in comparison to other Miracle decks. And in this format right now, I really want to be a little bit more aggressive because some Miracle decks just are juggling a little bit too long, or an Aurora deck or a Control deck where, hey, if I can score 1 or 2 points very aggressive, even before my big pop-off turn, then once I pop off, it's easier to win the game. And Hopeful really lets you do that. Because let's just say turn 1, if you're going second, you can do a stack deck and then a Hopeful. And it just gives you more turn 1 plays as long as you have 3 or more runes up, so not if you're going first, because really we are only playing 3 2-drops, and that's Traveling Merchant. So having a couple more low drops is always nice. And even when you're popping off, just a 2 energy unit is very easy to play and then just help you pop off even more with a Ram or something like that. So I really love how Noxus Hopeful can lead to more aggressive gains, and that's exactly why I'm playing 3 of. Then we are playing the full playset of Ram. That is kind of in the core Fury, Miracle package. Rasa, we are also playing a 3 of because in my mind, this is one of the reasons why I'm playing this deck is so I can play a more or less, just pay 1 Chaos Rune and play a free, at least free energy Rasa, and that is why I'm playing a 3 of, especially because then that bodes well with me trying to be more aggressive. So we're playing a whole play set of all of our units to be more aggressive and assert our dominance even faster. Next up is the gear. We're playing 3 seal, 3 scrap heap. That is pretty, stock in all lists because, well, you want the seals so then you can pay for your Rasa, stack decks, and Ezreal, all that good stuff. Seals are even better in this deck because we are playing Nocturne, so then seals go a little bit up. Scrap heap, we're playing 3 of because, yet again, in my mind, I feel like you either are on scrap heaps or you're not on scrap heaps. And well, I'm playing scrap heaps because I'm doing Design Warrants, Traveling Merchant, and Ezreal, and it feels so good to discard that and then be able to draw 2. As well as we are playing 2 Spinning Axe. Spinning Axe is so powerful. It's such a good signature spell, and Draven's hero power is so good, and then just a great signature spell is fantastic, and it's such a good combat trick. When we don't have tons of combat tricks, we have a couple other ones, but we don't have tons of combat tricks, and this really can surprise some people. However, now more miracles are playing Spinning Axe, so it's not as big of a surprise factor, but it can really help you push your advantage and help defend or help attack, and it's really a good card. But I could potentially see going down to 1 because you usually aren't leaving up tons and tons of energy on your opponent's turn. Or if you are, maybe there's a different thing that you would want. I think I could maybe see playing 1 Last Rites, 1 Axe in the main rather than 2 Axes and 1 Last Rites in the board. But I am still liking this because this tends to be the little bit more aggressive playstyle that I'm going for. For the spells, we are playing 3 Call Shot and 3 Stack Deck. That is Miracle 101. You're playing the Ezreal Call Shot stack decks. These cards are so good. Call Shot is so good with Ezreal and Seal. Also in the later game, even if you don't have an Ezreal or Seal, feels bad, but then you can just, recycle 2 purple runes and then just try to go off because you have enough runes or you're going to win the game that turn that you don't really care. I really, really try heavily not to ever play a called shot without repeating it. It might look tempting on turn 1 or turn 2 to play a called shot just normally to get out a cheaper ram or in this case a hopeful. However, in testing, whenever I did that, it always felt really bad because 1, you are de-ramping and you are just trading 1 card for 1 card. Called Shot's true power is that you trade 1 card for 2 cards. And on the topic of de-ramping early game, I try heavily not to de-ramp early game, meaning turn 1 and 2, besides if I have a seal to play, because then I'm a little bit more okay de-ramping if I have a seal. But if I don't have a seal, it's a really tough ask for me to do that, because a lot of times if you're de-ramping without a seal in turn 1 and 2, it will kind of come back and make it feel really rough. Bushwhack, I am doing a 2 of. Some people are just doing a 1 of. However, I really like Bushwhack. I think that this card is fantastic, and I keep on saying this, it bodes very well with my more aggressive strategy of full play sets of all the units, including Nocturne and Hopeful, as well as 2 Spinning Axe. So I want, 2 Bushwhacks. I don't think you should play 3 because I think that is way too many, because there's a lot of times with Bushwhack, you will discard it because you don't really want it early. So you will mulligan it or discard it early. But there's a lot of times where if you know that you have 2, well, you can discard and mulligan it early because it's like, hey, I'm going to see a lot of my deck this game, so I can discard this because hopefully I will draw 1 when I need it. And that is why I'm playing 2, because then I can be a little bit more aggressive of when I discard it, or even a little bit more aggressive where I can actually play 2 in a single game. And that can be really good because sometimes my first one might be just a little advantage, and then the second one is to win the game or just make it unable for my opponent to win the game. We are also playing 2 Fight or Flight. I really like this. This is a great combat trick. It's very, awesome that you can just hide it, or hey, if I have 2 runes up, I can just pass turn with this and axe up. It's nice to diversify your combat tricks. We are then playing 3 1-ofs. This deck, you can play a lot of 1-ofs because you are turning through your deck so much. So first up, we have a Hard Bargain. This is just a nice miser 1-of hard bargain because, hey, if your opponent may or may not respect it. Then when you hard bargain once, then they might think that you have more. And hard bargain gets even better because the repeat cost can go down with Ezreal. Then we have 1 Piercing Light. This is also why I like to be on 5 red runes, because we do have Piercing Light as well as Bushwhack. Piercing Light is just a very good, solid, cheap removal spell. And then if you have Ezreal, then it becomes even cheaper and more solid. And then we are playing a 1 of Rebuke, well, because this card is just so good, especially, it kind of laughs in the face of Ferris Forerunner and other units, and I never am unhappy to have 1 of. One big thing that you might see is I am playing 0 Fizz. That was the last card that I actually cut because I was trying to fit in 2 more Nocturnes, and I was maybe taking out like 1 Rebuke or 1 Hard Bargain or Fighter Flight or a Bushwhack, and then I started cutting the Fizz, and I really like that because Fizz is a very good card, and it might be a mistake that I'm cutting it, but since I'm trying to be more aggressive, Fizz is more of a value engine than an aggressive card. And when I was trying to be a little bit more aggressive, and when I say a little bit, I mean just a little bit, like I turn 1 or 2 more aggressive, because this is still like the core Miracle build that you're just juggling, and then popping off. But I wanted to just push the advantage of my aggression a little bit more. And I noticed then Fizz was dead in hand because I had other things that I wanted to play instead of Fizz. So I was playing 2 Fizz for a long time. I cut both of them to add the 2nd and 3rd Nocturne. Now it's time to talk about the sideboard. Obviously, you can see 8 different 1-ofs for the sideboard, and the beauty of this is, well, you see a lot of your deck, if not most of all of your deck every single game, so you can afford to play 1-ofs. Now, maybe I might tweak this to different 1-ofs, or maybe even play 2 that I tend to sideboard a little bit more, but cards that I tend to sideboard out are cards that are just like, oh, I'm playing against a control deck, so I easily take out Piercing Light, or a very heavy unit deck, so I take out Hard Bargain. But if it's not that easy, I tend to maybe audible to taking out maybe a Spinning Axe, or especially Merchant, especially on obvious games where Merchant does go down. And then that just leaves up a couple spots for you to then bring in higher impact ones where, hey, are you playing against a lot of spells? Well, bring in a Hard Bargain. If you're playing against a lot of units that Piercing Light kills, well, then you bring in a Piercing Light. If you're playing against like Ferris Forerunner or big units or Irelia, bring in Rebuke. Even Switcheroo also in that case is very good. Invert Timelines is a tricky one because you tend to draw a lot of cards and have a lot of cards in hand. But if you're going perhaps second, or you're playing against a deck like Aurelia with, just them drawing so many cards, well, then Invert Timelines can kind of stop them there. Last Rites, usually if I bring in Last Rites, I will take out 1 Axe, so go to a 1-1 split. And this is for the, I know it's kind of a meme, but for the grinding matchups where you want to recur your threats over and over and over again. Then Thermo Beam, obviously, if your opponent is playing a lot of gear, well, you bring in your Thermo Beam. Yes, you are playing 5 gear in the main deck with your 3 seals and 2 axe, but if you have Thermo Beam, maybe you sandbag all of your gear for like 1 or 2 more turns, then you Thermo Beam. Or maybe you Thermo Beam, maybe you get rid of 1 of your axes and 1 of your seals, but hopefully you're doing more damage to your opponent than the Thermo Beam is doing to yourself. And then we have Beam here Thunderson. This is very good in the purple matchups and a couple other matchups. This is usually, you play it on your last turn. You can do your Alpha Strike where then your opponent can't play any spells, and that feels really good. Some people are maybe playing 1 in the main. I tend not to want to do that game 1, but this is a card that in game 2 and 3 I will side in quite a lot. That's a little bit about how my Vegas weekend went, how the tournament went, as well as how my deck performed. I really like this deck. I do think that there might be some tweaks of just like maybe a couple changes here or there, but I'm really liking this core Miracle package. I am very much liking the more aggressive Miracle to push your advantage even further and faster than maybe decks that are dirtling around too much, because you can definitely punish them. Usually Miracle decks can punish, but this can just punish a little bit faster. And at the end of the day, I do like aggressive decks, and this fits my playstyle even a little bit more than the core Miracle package. I know that wasn't too in-depth. of a sideboard guide or tips or tricks. However, I really like this deck, and I've put in a lot of practice, a lot of work with this deck. I'm kind of thinking about maybe making more videos of going over heuristics or kind of your turn 1, turn 2 heuristics, keep or mulligan decisions, as well as a sideboard guide. And if I do that, I might just post it here on this channel, or I might do it on Twitter or maybe Metafy. I've never done Metafy before, but that seems like it could be kind of fun. So let me know down in the comments what you would like to see, what tips or tricks of the Miracle variety you would want to hear, and would you be interested in more videos like this or a Metafy guide or something like that, kind of giving you more tangible things that you can bring to your locals or other events. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.